Peace, peace, peace. This is Bree of Witnessing Bree, and today I am inviting you to have a cup of tea with me. These are weekly series that I'll be having where we just get to have a conversation. Today, I want to talk about the power of speaking up for yourself, of using your voice to say what you mean and not over explaining. Growing up, I was always the kid that kind of just went with whatever was given. I never really learned how to stand up for myself. Things would be said about me, or I'd want to say something, but I just felt like, I don't know, I'd never felt empowered to really say how I feel. And so in life, how that played out is that I became a people pleaser, that I wanted to make other people happy versus saying how I felt. And the past few years, I've really realized that. I've really seen how I've stayed in situations, conversations, relationships, not even like just intimate relationships, but friendships and business wise that don't serve me. But it's like been this fear that if I say what I want or how I want to be treated, that those opportunities, those people will leave. And so being someone that is still working with abandonment issues and not feeling worthy and good enough, right? Because we all have these things that we're working on, right? Maybe yours looks different. But in working through that, I have been like, oh, I always hold my tongue. I always hold my tongue and it never feels good. It never feels good. My ex-husband always used to say, like, I'm not going to be the only person with a sting in my chest. And one thing, I admired him because he would always say how he felt. He never held back. But I also think there is a delicate line, for me at least, of saying how I feel with peace and not trying to tear the other person down, right? And so recently, I was in a situation where I had to say my truth, but I was mad. I'm like, okay, do I say something? Should I say something? And you know, that voice in your head will start to tell you, oh, you should just let it pass. You don't need to say anything. But saying your truth is standing up for yourself. And saying my truth was standing up for the little Brie. And it was when I stand up for her, I'm allowing her to trust me more deeply. Because sometimes I can feel the little girl in me, the little girl or the adolescence in me, the teenage me. She can come through. And the young breed just wants someone to hear her. She just wants to know that someone's going to stand up for her. And now I get the opportunity to do that. So I'm leaving my job. I left my job and I turned in my notice. These people offered to pay someone new coming in like $13,000 more a year. And I was hurt. Like I was mad, especially because when I came into that role, I had to train myself. And when I say train myself, there was no one there to teach me how to run the payroll system. I literally had to call our payroll provider, Paycom, and have them walk through step by step on how to run payroll. There was no manual, there's no SOP, there was nothing. There was nothing. And so I did all those things. I did all those things. I created an SOP because they asked me to, which I was still reluctant to because I'm like, why do you want me to do? Like, I could already tell where it was going. We had got a new VP in our company. And, you know, sometimes you just meet people, you know, I was like, it's going to be trouble. This is going to be the end for me. And it was. But, you know, we did a lot of back and forth and I could tell it was the end. So, you know, I'm I'm not staying nowhere I'm not wanted. That's me. I don't, I'm very sensitive to energy. So if I feel like the energy done shifted, okay, bet. So, anyways, all this happens, right? And so I turn in my notice, and a friend of mine sends me like, hey, don't you work for this company? They're hiring. Same exact responsibilities, same duties, everything. I'm like, are you, mind you, I've been at this job for 2 years. And so I'm sitting with this, right? Because they have me training someone. And I'm just like, I live in an at-will state. So basically, the employer can determine if they want to release you at any time. They can. They don't have to have a reason. But it also goes the other way with the employee. So I was tempted just to like walk out, not say anything, blah, blah, blah. But I work for a manufacturing company, and I just thought about the people on the floor, people that make these products. Like, they don't make a lot of money and they need their money, and they're depending on me to be able to train this person, right? And I'm a believer that I can speak my truth but not harm other people. You know what I mean? And I don't want anyone, like, we all go to work to make money. So I was mad. I'm like, do I say anything? Do I not? How do I say it? Do I, like, how do I navigate this line? And being a Black woman in corporate America is, if you get labeled, but I'm leaving, so it really doesn't matter. So, anyways, they gave me a exit interview, and I'm sitting there looking at it. So I go in my director's office, and I'm like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" She's like, "Sure." I'm like, "I'm gonna close the door," because having tough conversations is something that I'm currently working through. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm not gonna fill out an exit interview. I feel very disrespected." And I go into all the reasons why I feel disrespected and how I don't feel valued at this company, which is essentially why I'm leaving. And I realized in that moment that speaking your truth sometimes can make other people uncomfortable. And there was a part of me that felt like maybe I shouldn't go, like maybe I shouldn't continue, because I could feel she was uncomfortable. But there was another part of me saying, that's for her to figure out. That's for her to sit with and sort out. It has nothing to do with me. And so I continued to go on my reasons. And when I tell you, I felt this weight. I felt proud of myself. Like, hey, I said these hard things, and I told her how I felt. And it wasn't any, I didn't cuss, I didn't do any of that, I didn't get loud. I stayed all of myself. I didn't have to disrespect anyone, but I let her know that I felt disrespected and I was disappointed, and all the things. And in that moment, I was like, I don't think I'll ever hold my tongue again for anyone, because a truth that I am sitting with is confrontation is conversation. Confrontation is conversation. And I always used to run from confrontation because I thought that it meant that something bad was going to happen and that someone has to win and someone has to lose. And that's just not true. Using your throat chakra, using your words to express how you feel, that is a tool that allows us to walk through life and not carry other people's garbage and opinions. This is not a landfill that people get to drop off their shit to me. And I just have to take it because I'm so concerned about being nice. So if you are struggling with learning how to speak your truth, learning how to say your truth, I do want to give you a few journal prompts that help me, because I've known for the last 2 weeks since I turned in my nose, well, like a week and a half since I turned in my notice. And every day I went to that job and I was like, do I say something? Do I wait? And I wish that I would have said something sooner. That's the only thing. I wish that I would have said something sooner. And moving forward, I'm going to start addressing things as they come up. Sometimes I like to wait because I want to think about what I'm going to say. And I want to make sure that I'm coming from a place of I want them to understand me versus I want them to feel me, because I'm a feeling based person. I navigate the world through how I feel and my emotions. I am a Cancer sun, Cancer ascendant, and the emotions be heavy, 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 heavy. So I feel a lot of things, but I also know that just because I feel it doesn't make it a truth. You know what I mean? And I'll say that to people, like, this is how I feel, but I know this may not necessarily be true. But anyways, here are some prompts to help you if you are struggling with moving and saying your truth in a way that feels good and authentic to you. So the first prompt is, what would change if you treated your truth as something sacred rather than something that needed to be explained? I'm going to say that again. What would change if you treated your truth as something sacred versus something that needed to be explained? Prompt number 2. What are some truths you've been avoiding because you've been afraid of how others respond? What are some truths you've been avoiding because you're afraid of how others will respond? So, hopefully, some of this information landed with you and you can relate. Tell me about a time where you had to speak your truth even when your voice was shaking. Because I find that those are the moments where you have the breakthroughs. So, comment below, let me know. I would love to hear. I would love to hear because I feel like we learn through community. We learn by hearing other people's experiences because sometimes we can relate and we can say, oh, and we can get the courage to be able to look at ourselves and stand in our truth boldly. All right. See you next time. Love you. Bye.